I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best.
Bellissima.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight, your perfect Saturday night in. In my big opinion, GB News star Esther McVey has been announced as the Minister for Common Sense. About time. I'll be announcing my 10-point plan to restore sanity to our great country. Let me give you some advanced warning. I may be talking common sense. My Mark Meets guest is one of Britain's most decorated Paralympians, Danny Crates, who tragically lost his arm in a car accident in his early 20s. Following his extraordinary sporting success, he's now one of the world's most in-demand motivational speakers, with a message that will inspire anyone. He tells his remarkable story shortly. In the big story is Nigel Farage about to charm the socks off Britain and win a brand new army of fans. Will he recruit thousands to the pro-Brexit right-wing cause? I'll be asking former star of I'm a Celebrity and ex-government minister Edwina Currie. Let me also tell you that we've got some embargoed images of Nigel Farage doing his first challenge. And we will go exclusively down under to get the inside track from an insider reporting on the show. So it's all happening. It's all about Nigel in the jungle. In my take at 10, has the halo slipped for Princess Kate? Following uproar about her appearance on BBC's Children in Need programme last night. I'll be tackling this growing royal drama head on. What I've got to say isn't pretty and could get me sent to the Tower. You won't want to miss it. So 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. And it is the eve of Nigel Farage going into the jungle. We're all over that story. We'll be going down under in just a few minutes' time. First, the news and Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you and good evening. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters staged a day of national action with demonstrations and marches taking place across the country. Police say around 250 demonstrators gathered on Whitehall. Outside the gates to Downing Street, at least 2 protesters were carried away by police at Waterloo Station after more pro-Palestine demonstrations. People could be heard chanting "ceasefire now" and "from the river to the sea" in the middle of the station's concourse. These scenes were captured in North London this afternoon. Some protesters were seen describing Israel as a terror state. Police say some of the gatherings appear to be a mix of pro-Palestine and Just Stop Oil activists. Well, meanwhile, at least 4 people were arrested during a Just Stop Oil protest earlier today. Activists marched from the Shell headquarters in the opposition to the approval of more than 100 oil and gas projects. The group says peaceful protesters are being locked up while those who it describes as climate criminals are protected. The Israeli military is warning thousands of people to leave the south of Gaza as it tightens its focus on Hamas terrorists there. Warnings issued weeks ago saw scores of people move from the north of Gaza amid the escalating conflict. Leaflets have been dropped by the IDF near the Khan Yunis area, telling people to move again, this time towards the west. Now, major advertisers are pulling their business from X, formerly known as Twitter, amid a row over alleged anti-Semitism. It comes after the site's owner, Elon Musk, appeared to endorse a post that falsely claimed members of the Jewish community were stoking hatred against white people. The White House called it an abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate. Disney, Warner Brothers and US network NBC are among those who've paused their advertising. And the Chancellor says there's a pathway to lower taxes ahead of next week's autumn statement, arguing the economy has turned a corner. Jeremy Hunt says this is the moment to focus on growth after inflation halved over the past year. It's understood he's considering cutting rates on inheritance and business taxes in what could be one of the last fiscal announcements before the next election.
OBR numbers and forecasts will be published on Wednesday at the autumn statement. But there is no easy route to reducing the tax burden. The way we do it is by spending taxpayers' money more wisely, and that means having more productive public services.
This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now back to Mark.
Great to have Tatiana with us. She returns in an hour's time. Welcome to a very special Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, GB News star Esther McVey has been announced as the Minister for Common Sense. About time. I'll be announcing my 10-point plan to restore sanity to our great country in just a moment. In the big story is Nigel Farage about to charm the socks off Britain and win a brand new army of fans. Will he recruit thousands to the pro-Brexit right-wing cause? I'll be asking former star of I'm a Celebrity and ex-government minister Edwina Currie. Plus, we'll be joined down under exclusively by our jungle insider. Plus, by the way, pictures are emerging of Nigel doing his first challenge. We got that as well. Not long to wait before Nigel goes into the jungle, of course, tomorrow at 9. My Mark Meets guest is one of Britain's most decorated Paralympians, Danny Crates, who tragically lost his arm in a car accident in his early 20s. Following his extraordinary sporting success, he's now one of the world's most in-demand motivational speakers with a message that will inspire anyone. He tells his remarkable story shortly. Looking forward to this in my Take at 10. Has the halo slipped for Princess Kate following uproar about her appearance on the BBC's Children in Need programme last night? I'll be tackling this growing royal drama head-on. Plus, shock new developments on the phone call between Prince Harry and his father, King Charles. We'll get the inside story from the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. We've also got tomorrow's front pages at 10:30, with 3 top pundits in the studio with ringside action, and they haven't been told what to say, and they don't follow the script. Tonight, socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey, singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu, and ethnographer and academic Lisa McKenzie. Tonight, I'll be asking the pundits, should Rishi Sunak call a snap Stop the Boats election? Plus, we'll be joined by Defence spokesman for Reform UK, Frederick Chedham, who will weigh in on what is becoming a national emergency. It's also tonight's text poll. Will Britain ever stop the boats? Plus, the most important part of the show, your emails. They come straight to my laptop, mark@gbnews.com. And this show has a strict golden rule, especially on a Saturday. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. A big 2 hours to come. We start with my big opinion. Amid all the drama around Suella Braverman and her sacking as Home Secretary and the revival of David Cameron's political career, one important chink of good news went largely unnoticed. The appointment of my friend, former GB News presenter and conviction politician Esther McVey, who is to be the government's Minister for Common Sense. Her official title is Minister without Portfolio in the Cabinet Office, but her task is to hunt down woke madness in government departments and to give politically correct ministers and civil servants a reality check, or in plain English, I should say, a rocket up their backsides. A minister for common sense, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because as woke progressive ideas have infiltrated government, our corporations and the media, common sense, logical things that you and I think have been the main casualty in recent times. So here is my top 10 list for Esther's inbox, my 10 commandments of common sense. Here we go. First of all, people with a penis are not women. Secondly, Britain's history is glorious, not shameful. Number 3, people should be judged on the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. Number 4, no one should lose their bank account, job or public role for their political views. Number 5, Britain is one community, one country, one nation, not divided into political identity groups. Number 6, a country can only spend what it brings in and not a penny more. Number 7, children should be taught maths, English and science, not gender, sex and sexuality. Toddlers, number 8, should not be watching drag shows or be asked for their pronouns. Number 9, there's no such thing as a cis woman, a birthing human or a chest feeder. And last but not least, number 10, everyone living in this country should sign up to common British values of decency, democracy, tolerance and the rule of law. If we don't enforce these values, then we are not a country at all. Those are my 10 commandments. I can't think of anyone better equipped to deliver them and to be our common sense czar than Esther McVey. She's got it running through her veins, common sense. She's real, she's authentic and she's fearless, something that she'll need to be to tackle tyrannical woke ideology, which is responsible for a major cultural revolution in our country without a single vote being cast. There's a fabulous quote from George Orwell, whose book on state authoritarianism has aged very well. Here's what the quote says. "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." So true. So it's time that we ignored the party and started to believe our eyes and our ears again. Our gut instinct is our ultimate human survival tool, which the authoritarian left are asking us to ignore, with madness like blokes competing against women in professional sport or intact men accommodated in female prisons because they say they are a lady. Common sense has become uncommon. It's time to bring it back. Your reaction, Mark, at gbnews.com. I'll get to your emails shortly, but let's hear from tonight's top pundits. Socialite and royal insider, Lady Victoria Harvey. Let's get those cameras going, folks. I know it's Saturday night. We've all had a drink. There she is, Lady Victoria Harvey. Singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu. Great to have Ben back in the studio as well. Sorry, we're going to have to put 10p in the meter just to keep things moving. Top ethnographer and academic, Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. But she keeps the doctor bit quiet because she's not a show-off. I'm not. OK, fascinating stuff. Listen, yeah, I thought you were. You've got some letters after your name, haven't you?
I've got loads. I've got BA, CS, MA, CS, PhD.
There you go, but no BS.
No, not with me.
Now, listen, what do you think about this idea of a minister for common sense?
I think it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's the maddest thing I've heard, actually.
Well, I think it's the best idea this government have had in months.
Well, we've got so many problems in the country. We've got homelessness, we've got poverty, we've got people now really frightened about the heating again. And it's common sense. What does that even mean? I'm a sociologist and I teach this stuff. So I always teach first years about what we all think is common sense. But we all realise that what we all think is very different. So what I might think is common sense is what is very different to what you might think. So to have a minister of common sense when we really should be having a minister of housing that is there more than 2 weeks, well, that's my problem.
Lisa, I share your concerns about the cost of living and how many of my viewers and listeners are struggling at the moment. But I think you can tackle woke madness and also those issues at the same time, Ben. And if we're looking for examples of you know, what Esther could tackle, she could go into the NHS and she could allow information and leaflets about the menopause to contain the word woman. That would be a start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think common sense should be defined by country, because I know that when I was growing up in some places in Nigeria, if you steal things, they cut your hands off. You know, and this is like many, many years ago, and these are stories that my dad used to tell me. So that was, so that would be...
Your hands are intact, by the way.
No. They should bring that back over here. It's too expensive. You know? No, but you know, and that was then, and that was how they lived then. And I think there should be like you know, there's a common sense in Great Britain, the way that we do things.
Yeah, the idea that we're one community. Why divide ourselves on skin colour or these identity groups? Or I'm gay, so I belong in that group, or I'm a black person, or I'm, you know, this religion or whatever. Why can't we be one country again, Ben?
Exactly. I totally agree.
And I think that is common sense.
Yeah. So the Minister of Common Sense, I'm on board with it. I'm completely on board.
Well, there you go. What do you think about this? Is this what you're going?
I mean, I like the idea of it. It is crazy that we actually have got to that point where we actually need somebody to be in charge of that, because everyone has gone crazy and people think that men can now give birth to babies. Or
that primary school children should be exposed to sexual materials about masturbation or being asked their pronouns.
I don't believe in these pronouns. It completely doesn't exist. I think it's a mental illness, anyone that believes that you need to put a pronoun in front of your name.
Is that a little harsh on people that identify by different gender? I mean, would you not, as a courtesy,
you also have these little kids that now think that, you know, they're animals, and you know, instead of having a bathroom, they've now got a little sand pit that they're going to the bathroom, and like, this is mental illness. I think there need to be, like, obviously a lot of, psychiatrists is going to be, you know, the new job for everybody.
Well, perhaps we need a minister for, like, mental
illness. I think mental health is probably the biggest thing.
I think there is a mental health minister, but they've got their work cut out, haven't they? Well, listen, folks, what do you think about this? What would you like to add to Esther McVeigh's inbox as Minister of Common Sense? What common sense policies would you like to see enacted? Let me know, mark@gbnews.com. Now, in the big story, is Nigel Farage about to charm the socks off Britain and win a brand new army of fans? Will he recruit thousands to the pro-Brexit right-wing cause? I'll be asking former star of I'm a Celebrity and ex-government minister Edwina Currie. Plus, we're heading live down under to our jungle insider. Plus, the first exclusive images of Nigel doing a challenge. All of that is next.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best.
Bellissima.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion. Esther McVey, former GB News star, has become the Minister of Common Sense. I've outlined my 10 commandments for a more commonsensical country. People with a penis are not women. Britain's history is glorious, not shameful. And people should be judged by the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. Those are my commandments. What about yours? This from Chris. Hi, Mark. I'd make it that shirts with ties should have proper collars. I think that Chris is commenting on this, which apparently is a cutaway. I don't know what you think of my shirt, but hopefully some of you are enjoying it. Richard says, Mark, you missed the 11th rule of common sense. Turn over to GB News and throw the remote in the bin. John says, listen, common sense has gone out the window. It will never return. I'll get to more of your emails shortly. But folks, very excited about this because, let me tell you, it's time for the big story, and a nation awaits as GB News star Nigel Farage enters the jungle. So is the famously personable Farage going to charm the socks off Britain and win a new army of fans? Will he recruit thousands to the pro-Brexit right-wing cause, or could it all backfire? With me now is former government minister and someone who acquitted herself brilliantly in the jungle, Edwina Currie. That was in 2014. And our jungle insider live from Australia, exclusively for GB News, Ben Leo. Folks, great to have both of you with me. First of all, Maria, have you got those images yet? Because these are the exclusive first photographs of Nigel doing his first challenge before he gets into the jungle. Take a look at this. So there's Nigel attempting some kind of challenge. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it. He's wearing his goggles. His fancy pink shirt is covered in stains and soiled slightly. I think we might have another image. There you go. There's Nigel with one of his camp mates, and they're both embarked on this disgusting challenge. He's waist high in rather disgusting water, and there's Nigel's head in a VW camper van. I'm assuming there that he's trying to fish out some kind of treasure to bring to the campmates. So, Edwina, before I come to you, Ben Leo, do we know what Nigel's been up to in that first challenge?
Hello, Mark. We don't know the full extent of what he's been up to, but we do know that for the first time ever in I'm a Celeb history, they shipped Nigel 2,000 miles away to Australia's Northern Territory, which is the outback to me and you, scorching 40-degree heat. For a gunk and slime challenge. ITV said that he's been wading through gallons of disgusting sludge and what they call hellholes. And that picture you just showed there of him looking revolted, I mean, it's as if he's learned that Brexit's been reversed and Alistair Campbell's been made Prime Minister or something. It had me in stitches this morning. And actually, it's a sign of things to come. Does Nigel know what he's got himself into? Judging by that picture, I don't think he does.
Edwina, you were there, you've got the T-shirt. Can you tell us what's going through Nigel's mind at the moment? Is it deep regret?
I should think he's a bit bewildered by everything that's happening. I tell you what,
I'm a Celebrity, originally, the very first series was shot up near Darwin, and it was too hot for the crew. So what they had to do was decide, no, they couldn't do that there in future, and have to do it somewhere more reasonable, close to Brisbane. So the environment is actually very pleasant around there. I'm sure he's settling in very nicely, probably trying to avoid getting bitten by bugs of one kind or another, including the ones that aren't thrown at you. I mean, nature there is fairly determined, as is indeed the food, which is awful and not very much of it. He'll start off, I think, really quite excited, but after a while, it really starts to get you down. I can't wait till you're in it, Mark. I think you would be brilliant.
Oh, listen, they couldn't afford me, Edwina. Ben Leo, you know Nigel pretty well, and I think you were close to that story when it was emerging that he would go into the jungle. You kept stum, you kept your counsel very well. What's your impression of Nigel's body language from those images? Do you think he's enjoying it?
It doesn't look like he's enjoying it, no. But to be fair to him, before he went into the jungle, he was saying that he's game for anything. You know, he's dealt with the rats of Westminster, with the snakes of the European Parliament. What could some critters in the Australian jungle do to him? So he was pretty bullish and pretty confident about his stint in the jungle. But like I said, just seeing that one picture of him looking absolutely revolted maybe makes me think, you know, does he know what he's really got himself in for? Well, he better get used to it, because he's got 3 whole weeks of this. And as ITV's star man, a rumoured £1.5 million fee, a record, by the way, for the series, you're going to suspect that he's going to be doing trials day in, day out. So, Nigel, get used to it. It's going to be a hell of a time. It's going to be extremely entertaining for the likes of me and you, and even for his haters as well, who hate him for Brexit, can't forgive him for yanking us out of the EU. I'm sure they're going to be bashing those phones, getting him to do every trial possible.
What's the biggest challenge, Edwina? Is Nigel going to need mental or physical strength?
Well, he's going to find himself deprived of all sorts of things. That, I think, is going to be tough. There's no coffee, no cigarettes, no salt, no pepper. There's no spices. Your food just tastes absolutely awful. No phones, of course, no contact with the outside world. And that can be really rather disorientating, in the sense that you have no idea what impact you're having on the outside world. You become a performer just for the dozen or so people that you're in there with. And I'd like to bet some of them are going to thoroughly enjoy themselves by goading him and trying to get him to lose his temper, trying to get him to be aggressive. We will find out what kind of man he really is in real life. You know, it's absolute catnip for 11 million people on this side of the pond. We can't wait to watch it. Absolutely brilliant choice for ITV.
Ben, Nigel, before he actually confirmed that he was going to be on I'm a Celebrity, he told me on this programme that he'd like to reach out to a younger audience. Do you think that this appearance on I'm a Celebrity will be a recruiting sergeant to the Brexit cause and possibly drum up more support for the political right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Nigel said to me before he went in, 10 million people viewed the series last year at its peak. That's when Matt Hancock was in. And arguably, Nigel is more popular than Hancock. So this series could really eclipse those viewing figures, all of which are 18 to 35-year-olds, mostly. So for Nigel, if he wants to get back into politics and he wants to scoop up the mess of the Tory party when they are likely annihilated at the next election by Labour, this is a great chance for him to tap into those 10 million plus swathes of the electorate who maybe wouldn't have given him a chance before. So not only is it a great earner for Nigel personally, a couple of quid in the bank, he can also set up and mould the foundations for his big political return. So, yeah, lots of opportunities and exponential advantages for him on this front. As Edwina said, though, the only risk is, without the booze, without the caffeine and the limited cigarette breaks, is that going to push him over the edge where, you know, his spicy side comes out and he puts viewers off? That's the risk. But as we know, Mark, Nigel is genuinely a charming and very pleasant guy. So I think that risk is pretty small.
Do you think, Edwina, there's a natural journey from King of the Jungle to number 10?
Well, it's at least possible. And I have no doubt that what we heard is just right, that actually Nigel thinks that is going to be a possibility. But there are a number of other hurdles he'd have to get through first. I mean, the first is he's actually got to do well in the jungle and not make a complete fool of himself. George Galloway probably thought the same thing when he did Big Brother, and you remember how that ended. Then he's got to get himself a parliamentary seat, because you're nobody if you're not actually in Parliament. He's got to not only get one, but unlike the 7 previous times he's tried for Westminster, he'd actually have to win it. And, you know, seriously, if he wanted to make any kind of impact, he would have to be a member of one of the big parties. I can't see Keir Starmer welcoming him, and I really don't think that the Conservatives would either. But who knows? You know, we've had a very busy week in politics. It's been astonishing. Anything could happen.
Well, there you go. What a set of wise words that is. Ben, we're going to be on air a lot together for the next few weeks, because my shows often start at 10, or we're on air at 10 o'clock, which is when I'm a Celebrity comes off air. So tell me about your role. You are our definitive and exclusive jungle insider, aren't you?
Well, look, Mark, it's one of those jobs in journalism where, you know, nobody wants to do it. It's a formidable job, but someone's got to do it. You know, I left England when it was the depths of winter and it was rainy and it was dark, and it's the heights of summer out here, as you can see. I've already got a bit of a tan on the go from just one day's work of sunbathing. But anyway, my job here on the ground will be reporting on Nigel's progress, every cock and bit of his activity in the jungle, and also, when his friends and family arrive, trying to grab some exclusive interviews with them to see how he's getting on. And, yeah, just follow his journey from start to finish in what is a historic signing for ITV and the jungle.
Most definitely. We'll look forward to your coverage for the next few weeks. Edwina, thank you so much. We'll catch up soon. Brilliant stuff. Well, there you go. I'm a Celebrity tomorrow at 9 o'clock, which I'll be honest is a slight clash with GB News' output. But what I can tell you is that every night when that show, I'm a Celebrity, comes off air, you'll get full post-match reaction on GB News, including tomorrow night at 10:30 on Mark Dolan Tonight. Coming up next with tonight's top pundits, should Rishi Sunak call a snap stop the boats election? And let me ask you, will Britain ever stop the boats? We'll be joined by Defence Spokesman for Reform UK and my top pundits. We've been asking, will Britain ever stop the boats, in a text poll as well. The results are in. I shall reveal all next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion. Esther McVey is the Minister of Common Sense. I've asked for your common sense ideas. Well, let's have a look at this. And a big reaction on email, I've got to say, mark@gbnews.com. Peter says, Mark, thank goodness the PM has woken up. As taxpayers, we're still burdened with the tens of thousands of bureaucrats in non-jobs, all telling us what to think. Esther should redeploy them into working to promote our great country, helping our industry and exports. Elizabeth's got some common sense. She says, having worked in the NHS for years, procurement should be viewed with the common sense attitude that we have when we shop for our own personal shopping. Get a few quotes for items. Don't use the manufacturer name for medications, for example, pain control. Pat says, Mark, limit the number of protest marches for the same subject. Return freedom of speech. A law about climbing on or defacing war memorials. That's Pat in Newcastle. Peter does not agree, and this show is all about diverse opinion. Peter says, listen, a trans woman can have a penis before their operation. Esther will send the country backwards. She does not care about gay people in this country. I don't think there's evidence of that. Some elements of British history, says Peter, is glorious, but hundreds of years of slave trade before it was stopped means in reality British history has a negative past. OK, well, look, thank you for that. Keep those emails coming, mark@gbnews.com. Reacting to the big stories of the day, tonight's top pundits, socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey, singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu, and ethnographer and academic Lisa Mackenzie. Now, following the Supreme Court judgment that the government's Rwanda plan is unlawful, Rishi Sunak has hinted to reporters that he could call an emergency Stop the Boats election. With the Conservatives languishing in the polls, could a campaign based around this one single issue move the dial for Sunak and hand him an unlikely victory in a few months' time? I'll get the views of my pundits shortly. But first, let's speak to Reform UK's defence spokesman, Frederick Chedham. Hi, Fred.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks very much for joining us. I've been asking my listeners and viewers today, will Britain ever stop the boats? Do you think we will?
Not on the present trajectory that this government is following. They haven't a hope. They are simply trying to wriggle around human rights legislation, which is every other form of legislation we've got. They're coming up against the Supreme Court, the ECHR, and every bit of metropolitan thinking that goes against it. And so they are not going to do it unless they are prepared to undertake some radical reform. And frankly, we see little evidence that they're prepared to undertake that bravery.
What do you think about this idea by the Prime Minister that he could call an election, possibly a snap election, based around stopping the boats? Could that move the dial for him?
Well, he's full of gimmicks, this man, isn't he? That's all he does. Rwanda is a gimmick. We were going to swap 200 people from somewhere for 200 Rwandans. That was never going to be a deterrent. And this idea is a gimmick as well. And I think he's speaking more to his own party, where there may be some voices being raised as to the need for a vote of no confidence or whatever. And I think he's basically trying to damp down the threat of that. I mean, the idea that a single issue, general election on this, is going to make much difference isn't going to work. Even if it gave him a mandate, what's he going to do? He still won't do what he needs to do, which is the Human Rights Act and approach the problem of the ECHR. And no matter how much he tries, he's going against that brick wall. And we are going to have to take some fundamental reform of those areas of our legislative framework. And a general election will change nothing.
Well, I guess you shouldn't hold your breath, should you, Frederick? Because it looks like the Prime Minister is unwilling to leave the ECHR. George Osborne this week said that with David Cameron in the Cabinet now as Foreign Secretary, that won't happen. That's for the birds, the idea of exiting the ECHR. And the lawyer, who is going to be our next Prime Minister most likely, Keir Starmer, takes the same view. So that means the boats will not stop.
Well, I think on the present trajectory, right, but as we've seen already from the piece you did earlier, I mean, this government does wake up very late to the problems it faces. Eventually, when it's staring defeat in the face, it makes some changes. Now, you're right, the ECHR's decision may take some time to leave it, but there's absolutely a reason why we can't set aside, disapply some of the positions of it. And the idea that the ECHR makes us a pariah state, I just don't buy. I mean, Australia, Canada, United States, they seem to get along quite happily with their human rights without the need for some trans-superior jurisprudence. We can disapply the ECHR decisions. We've done it before. That's 7 times out of 80 decisions. We've done that. We did it with voters, prison voting system. More importantly, so do other countries. Strasbourg is stuff full of case law where inconvenient decisions have been set aside by members who don't want to follow it. And that is a decision which we can take here and now. And I suspect, a little bit closer and the polls don't move and that dial doesn't shift that we're talking about, someone in government is to wake up to what the British people are asking for, and that is to stop those votes.
Interesting stuff. Well, let's bring my pundits in if I can, Frederick. Do stay there. Ben Afwedu, Lady Victoria Harvey and Lisa Mackenzie. Ben, do you think Britain will ever stop the boats?
I don't know. I don't know if they will, but I do think that Rishi will call a general election. In it, I think that this is not the time for infighting in the Conservative Party.
So you predict a sort of stop the boats election?
Yes.
A single issue election?
Yes. I think so. I think he'll do it because I think that he's just saying, listen, guys, we can't afford to fall apart at this time right now.
Yeah, I wonder, Lady Victoria Harvey, whether this presents Rishi Sunak with an opportunity. He's down in the polls. It looks like almost certain defeat. Could this be the one issue that saves him?
Well, what I don't understand is, like, why can they not just stop the boats from coming so we don't have to actually send people back to other countries?
Well, indeed, and of course that's what happened in Australia, where they, in the end, used their navy to turn boats away. But it seems like a legal minefield. Yeah. What do you think about this, Lisa Mackenzie? Will the government ever stop the boats?
No, they're never going to be able to stop the boats. I mean, people are going to travel forever. Human beings travel, that's what we do, so they will never stop them. But sort of the Rwanda plan, they need to stop that because it's wasting time, it's wasting resources, and it's wasting people's goodwill, actually. The Rwanda plan was never going to work. It was expensive, it was not practical, it was no good.
But Lisa, I mean, my heart goes out to people struggling to get to this country, but... Well, in the end, the public find this intolerable. It's a national security, economic and humanitarian disaster. Why have we got to tolerate these illegal crossings?
But what we can do, I'm not saying that we can't do anything. There are lots of other things that we should be doing. We should be looking for the safe routes. We should be...
well, that's probably going to involve more crossings, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, it might do.
Well, it's winter
Victoria.
right now, so the good thing is it's winter and it's going to be a lot harder for them to cross at the moment. Look, in America at the moment, there's been about 25,000 people that went to Chicago and they've realised that actually America is not selling the dream anymore, and so they're actually going back home.
My goodness.
So maybe that will happen here.
I'm sure that's going to happen here.
If we don't treat them so well, maybe they'll go back.
Victoria, France's President Emmanuel Macron said we cannot accept the misery of the world. Is it time that we have that conversation now? Because in the end, there's an unlimited number of people that you could welcome.
It is that time, because otherwise, like, what is going to happen? We cannot even look after our veterans, our own veterans that are, like, 100-year-olds people. Remember that person recently that was, like, homeless at 100 years old?
I mean, I agree that we should be that we should have this conversation. I think the conversation needs to be had.
Even the last year and a half, I've noticed a lot more homeless people here. I left California because of, like, people everywhere. The homelessness was so bad. Tent cities. We do not want England to become like that.
Yes,
we have to stand up
there you go.
for it
Briefly,
now.
Frederick, California, a warning to Britain.
Well, possibly. I mean, I think the problem is we've spent about 2, maybe 3 decades letting ourselves into a corner. The government no longer control this problem. The courts and the metropolitan elite control them. And unless we're prepared to front up to the idea that Blair's notions of open borders, Rights Act, and followed on by open society, and then May's modern slavery, have put us into a position where the government can no longer take the action that the people want them to do. And unless they are prepared, that's going to change.
Frederick, great first appearance on the show. First of many, I hope. My thanks to Frederick Chedham there, the Reform UK Defence spokesman. Well, in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's poll, we've been asking, will Britain ever stop the boats? And you're not sounding optimistic. 88.8% say no, we won't, whilst 11.2% say yes, we will. Coming up in my Take at 10, has the halo slipped for Princess Kate? Find out more shortly. But first, my Mark Meets guest is one of Britain's most decorated Paralympians, Danny Crates, who tragically lost his arm in a car accident in his early 20s. But he's back, and he is now one of the world's most in-demand motivational speakers, as well as being a top Paralympian. So he tells his story next. You won't want to miss it. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coming up in my Take at 10, has the halo slipped for Princess Kate? Find out more shortly, but first, Mark meets. And tonight, one of Britain's most decorated Paralympians who specialised in the 800-metre sprinting, holding the Paralympic world record in this event and scooping gold at the Paralympic Games, European Championships and World Championships. Despite losing his right arm in a car accident in 1994 in his early 20s, he decided to take up athletics, and the rest is history. He's also played competitive rugby, you heard me right, and is a qualified diving instructor. Since his retirement from competitive sport, Danny is now an internationally renowned inspirational speaker with a positive message that will help anyone struggling with life. And I'm delighted to say that Danny Crates joins me now. Hi, Danny.
Hi, thanks. It's great to be here.
Lovely to have you in the studio. We'll get to your sporting glory in just a moment. Can you tell me a bit about the accident in 1994? What happened?
Yeah, I was travelling in Australia. I was at the end of my gap year, so I got my year in first, and then I just involved in one of those freak accidents. I was just travelling up the coast, doing actually my last job before I travelled home, and just clipped a car coming the other way. Lost my arm actually in the accident, ended up down a ditch. But very lucky, there was one house and they heard it, and they came to my rescue because I was in a pretty bad way.
You get to hospital and you begin to process what's happened. What are your emotions at that point?
I think when something like traumatic like that happens, the hospital is the safe part. And so you've just got everything going on around you.
That's practical, isn't it? It's like we've got to stop you dying, stop you bleeding.
Yeah, you're in intensive care, you're on the drugs. Obviously, the first tough part was probably my mum and dad arriving because they pre-mobile phones, so they got the phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning. Within 36 hours, they had arrived at my bedside. That was probably the first tough part. And then I had about 10 days in Australia that I was just sort of recovering before I got out of hospital, and then a bit longer before I could fly home. And then it really starts when you get home, because that's when you're sort of alone. Like you don't have that network at the hospital, so that's when you've got to start that journey.
Yeah, and then the months and years go by. Your mental health at that point, tell me what was going on in your head.
I think if I look back, at the time I didn't think there was any issues. Obviously, the close ones around me would see there was. I wouldn't say I was bad, but there's definitely struggles in there. But I think it just come down to the closeness of family, very, very good friends. I was a rugby boy, so just my local rugby club, Thurrock, and it was the players there that really supported me and my close friends from school. It was that nurturing environment, not sort of wrapping me in cotton wool, treating me the same as they did before. You know, I was an idiot before, so to them I was still an idiot. So, I was just a really bad driver. So.
And of course you got back on the rugby field. If it's not a stupid question, what are the immediate practical issues of losing an arm?
It's more like people talk about balance, and you're not really off balance, you don't fall over, but it's body balance, and especially in sport you notice that because everything needs to sort of line up. I was right-handed, so I had to learn how to do everything left-handed, and that's not easy, and you soon work out when you only have the left hand. We live in a right-handed world, so like everything's right-handed, and back then you had didn't have camera phones, you had cameras, you had to turn a camera upside down because they weren't left-handed cameras. So I just had to learn, but it's gradual.
People shake the hand with the right hand as well, don't they?
They do, yeah, and I like the awkwardness of it, because some people don't, and it's if they do it naturally, they just go backwards, and I don't mind that. I've got no problems. It's when they overthink it, and then it all gets a little bit funny. But it's just the way we live, right? And I had all sorts of adaptions of gizmos and gadgets in the early days, and then they've all gone now. Now it's just about
prosthetics. Why did you give up on those?
The gizmos and gadgets, because if you rely on them, to me, you'd have to carry them everywhere you go. I had prosthetic limbs in the early days. I only ever wore it out in public once, and I had a split hook on it, and I pinched my mate's girlfriend's backside with a hook. I thought it was really funny. She took the hook off, and I was just left like an idiot with just this arm, no end to it. So that was the only time I ever wore it. I just didn't need it.
You didn't want to give it the Bond villain action?
No, just with the hook. I looked more like a rubbish pirate, and that was it. But...
Abu Hansa's stunt double.
Yeah.
Listen, it's amazing what you've achieved in competitive sport. So why athletics and why sprinting?
Well, I mean, I was an athlete when I was younger. I did athletics when I was a junior, all through the ranks from my club, Thurrock, where I grew up. But initially, I went back to scuba diving, had a little stint as a shark display diver and a scuba diving instructor, and then sort of the rugby field, played on the rugby field for a bit. And it was from there, really, I got back into athletics. And it was just initially not to go on try and have this 12-year career, But it was just to see if it was possible, see if I could get back on the track and see what I was capable of. And it just sort of grew step by step. It started off in the 400 metres. I never even planned to be an 800-metre runner. It was just, I think athletics, the event will always find you. And I tried for many years to be a 400-metre runner. I did OK, won bronze medals at the Paralympics in Sydney. But then the 8 sort of found me. And that I just felt at home with the 800 metres. It was a little bit sort of more rough and ready, a little bit aggressive in the race sometimes. And you have the ability to sort of change tack while you're in there a little bit and try and control the race. Everything worked for me and it just felt right.
And how did this sort of top-level competitive sport, how did that help you with your journey to getting used to the new you?
I think actually the new me came when I was a scuba diving instructor and without even knowing it. So I went back, pre-athletics, I went back to Australia, trained up as an instructor. Like many things in life, I didn't know I was going to get that far. I just thought, I'd give it a go, see how far I can get. And I eventually became an instructor, worked out there for 9 months. And it was one day I was standing at the front of a boat and suddenly realised that, you know, I'm in Australia, so I didn't have my top on, I had a pair of like swimmers on, waiting to get ready to go and take people. But everyone was looking at me because they wanted, you know, they're wide-eyed and nervous because they're going on the Great Barrier Reef and they're looking at me for advice. And I suddenly realised I'm not worried. I didn't know when it happened, but suddenly I wasn't conscious anymore that people noticed me or looked at my arm. So I think that was the first big step. And of course, athletics is when you're known for being an athlete as opposed to someone with a disability, and that was always...
And you get known for your medals and your gongs and all that glory, and that sort of shaped the man that you now are. You're now a very in-demand international speaker, a motivational speaker, businesses, all the rest of it. What are some of the key themes of your speeches to business leaders and others?
Yeah, I mean, I look at some of the transferable skills that we take from the world of professional sport, but also some of the things that sport doesn't do well. And then it all comes down to... So I have these performance pillars that I would work businesses through, all done through the journey, the story, the light-hearted look at life sometimes and how we overcome hurdles and how we deal with success, how we deal with setbacks. But for me, it's all about that high-performance mindset, and we can I try to simplify everything because I was a runner, right? One foot in front of the other, it's not hard. It's complicated, but it's not hard. But it's about that mindset. It's about how can I be better today than I was yesterday? What can I learn from today that I can take into tomorrow? It's that 1% better mindset that athletes have. And it's how we can very easily use that in personal or our business lives, just because it keeps us moving forward. And of course, you can't improve every single day, but you've got to have the mindset to give you the percentage chance of doing it. And I think I call it the athlete mindset because it's what athletes...
Which we can all have.
Everyone's got it. It's nothing special. There's no formula for it. It's just that ability to say, you know, I want to learn from what happened today, whether it went right or wrong. There's always something to learn, and I'm going to take it forward. I always say that I lost more races than I ever won, but in every race I ever lost, I learned something. My coach, Ao Falola, who's sadly not with us anymore, I mean, he was the driving force behind me, and without him, I would never have got to where I got to, and my training group. But he used to put me in races and put me in situations I had no chance of winning. But every time I was in those situations, I was learning all the time.
Amazing. Look, the clock's against us, but I'm going to plug your website in a moment because it's incredibly inspiring, your story and your message. For me, your story is one of change and adapting to change. And not just that, not just accepting change, which happened against your will when you were 20, but embracing it. So what would you say briefly to my viewers who are stuck in a rut? They want their lives to change. How can they make that happen?
It's don't ever be scared of it, right? Because I've always had the mindset of what's the worst that'll happen, right? So you try something new, you give it a go. If it doesn't work out, you go back to what you was doing and go off in a different direction. But you've usually learned something along the way. That's the approach I've kind of had every step of the way. So going back to rugby, I didn't know if I'd play again, but I'd give it a go. Doing the athletics or switching from rugby to athletics, what's the worst that happens? If it doesn't work out, I go back to rugby, but I'm fitter, faster, stronger because I've done all this athletics training. It's always been the same.
How can people find out more about what you do?
You can visit my website. It's www.dannycrates.co.uk. I do have some social media channels, but I'm more old school website.
I like it. Listen, let me say it's an incredible story. Thank you for inspiring me and my viewers and listeners. And I met your lad, Henry, as well. He's a smasher, just like his old man, though not as handsome. Of course he is, I'm only kidding. OK, folks, has the halo slipped for Princess Kate? Find out in my Take at 10 next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. Happy Saturday, one and all. In my take at 10, has the halo slipped for Princess Kate following uproar about her appearance on the BBC's Children in Need last night? I'll be tackling this growing royal drama head on. Also, shock new developments in regards to that phone call between Prince Harry and his father, King Charles. We'll get the inside story from the Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. And let me tell you, it is the eve of Farage going into the jungle. We've got more details on that and exclusive pictures of his first challenge. All of that to come, a packed show, lots to get through, but first the news and Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you very much and good evening. This is the latest. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters staged a day of national action with demonstrations and marches taking place right across the country. Police say around 250 demonstrators gathered on Whitehall outside the gates to Downing Street. At least 2 protesters were carried away by police at Waterloo Station. After more pro-Palestine demonstrations, people could be heard chanting "ceasefire now" and "from the river to the sea." British Transport Police say 5 people were arrested. Now, these scenes were captured in North London this afternoon. Some protesters were seen describing Israel as a terror state. Meanwhile, at least 4 people were arrested during a Just Stop Oil protest earlier today. Activists marched from the Shell headquarters in opposition to the approval of more than 100 new oil and gas projects. The group says peaceful protesters are being locked up while those who it describes as climate criminals are protected. The Israeli military is warning thousands of people to leave the south of Gaza as it tightens its focus on Hamas terrorists there. Warnings issued weeks ago saw scores of people move from the north of Gaza amid the escalating conflict. Leaflets have been dropped by the IDF near the Khan Yunis area, telling people to move again, this time towards the west. Now, major advertisers are pulling their business from X, formerly known as Twitter, amid a row over alleged anti-Semitism. It comes after the site's owner, Elon Musk, appeared to endorse a post that falsely claimed members of the Jewish community were stoking hatred against white people. Well, the White House called it an abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate. Disney, Warner Brothers and US network NBC are among those who've paused their advertising. Finally, the Chancellor says there's a pathway to lower taxes ahead of next week's autumn statement, arguing the economy has turned a corner. Jeremy Hunt says this is the moment to focus on growth after inflation halved over the past year. It's understood he's considering cutting rates on inheritance and business taxes in what could be one of the last fiscal announcements before the next election.
OBR numbers and forecasts will be published on Wednesday at the autumn statement. But there is no easy route to reducing the tax burden. The way we do it is by spending taxpayers' money more wisely, and that means having more productive public services.
This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by simply saying play GB News. Now back to Mark.
Thanks, Tatiana. We'll see you in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Shock new developments on that phone call between Prince Harry and his father, King Charles. We'll get the latest from the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, plus tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits, socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey, singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu, and ethnographer and academic Lisa Mackenzie. Plus, they'll be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros. A packed hour, and let me tell you, it's the eve of Nigel Farage going into the jungle. We've got more at 10:30, including exclusive photos of Nigel's first challenge in the jungle. Lots to get through, but first, my take at 10. The halo has slipped, or should I say tiara. The Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, natural heir to Princess Diana, and even the owner of Diana's iconic engagement ring, has stepped into a row about charity fundraising as she launched last night's Children in Need on BBC One. Here's what she had to say on the show.
I'm delighted that Children in Need have invited me to open this evening's show. Sadly, we know that for too many people, stressful and traumatic situations in early childhood can cause harm, and it can take many years to overcome. They help the very youngest, most vulnerable members of our society feel safe, secure, and loved in these important formative years.
Now, she spoke well, and I'm all for members of the royal family making speeches about charitable causes. And alongside their constitutional and ceremonial duties, it's the most important thing that they do. And I'm reluctant to criticise this young princess who hasn't put a foot wrong since she entered public life. Her quiet dignity, her commitment to the job and her grace are in stark contrast to her upstart sister-in-law over in Montecito, California. And so I reserve my ire for the numpty at the palace who decided to turn Princess Kate into a TV presenter for the night. Now, of course, she looked great. She's easier on the eyes than a pair of sliced cucumbers. But I think it's beneath senior members of the royal family to front TV shows. I mean, what's next? King Charles presents Question Time? Queen Camilla hosts Countdown? Prince Andrew to become the face of CBeebies? Good luck with that. It's my view that, as much as possible, senior members of the royal family should be like Victorian children, seen but not heard. I actually didn't know what Princess Kate sounded like up till now, and while she meant well with her opening stint on the show, focusing on the important aspects of last night's fundraiser, she has unwittingly, in my view, entered a political storm which chips away at the integrity of our monarchy. How so? Well, because as one of the most privileged and famous people in the world, it just isn't a good look to address a nation of economically punch-drunk citizens struggling with the cost of living, rising rent, exploding mortgages and £1.50 for a loaf of bread, to be telling people to dig into their pockets and give us, to paraphrase Bob Geldof, your bloody money. It seems I'm not alone in being shocked and disappointed by this intervention. The Daily Express newspaper, which is always a cracking read and a tablet of truth in my view, led their paper with this shocking headline: Princess Kate sparks uproar over tone-deaf BBC Children in Need appearance. And the paper reports the public fury, which was, I'm afraid, instant, was rather boiling over. Kelly Derry said a billionaire opening the Children in Need show on BBC, asking society for donations. Tone deaf. Linda Mullins said, what the hell is Kate doing, opening Children in Need? So out of touch, not a good start. Asphalt World tweeted, I hope Kate Middleton is going to announce a 10% cut in royal funding from public taxes. Think how much that would raise for charity. And Plaid L. Les said, so Kate Middleton, who owns several homes, just popped up on Children in Need. Last year, it raised about £20 million, or £354 million less than we gave the royals to tart up Buckingham Palace. The hypocrisy. Harsh words. Now, I couldn't have more admiration for Princess Kate, and it's my view she's been advised poorly to do this. But I'm afraid it does mark a pattern in which this new generation of royals, led by Charles at the very top, appear to be more politically active and more vocal than under the reign of Elizabeth II. Prince William presenting gongs at the eco-friendly Earthshot Awards, and Charles himself, just a few weeks ago, moaning to the comedian and explorer Michael Palin that we need to roll out the red carpet for refugees. Now, he may be right about that, but it's not for the king to say. And it's not for the Prince of Wales to push a net zero agenda, which may or may not be justified, as those policies will impact the wallets and quality of life of ordinary Brits, which makes those policies political, which means they should be best left to politicians. Because whatever William, Charles or Catherine campaign for, they will always be insulated from the real-world consequences, unlike the rest of us. Kate Middleton is the future of the royal family and arguably its biggest star. But last night she waded into a right royal mess. It's the children who are in need. We don't need to hear from millionaire royals. Your reaction, Mark at GBnews.com. I'll get to your emails shortly, but first, my top pundits. Socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey, singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu, and ethnographer and academic Lisa Mackenzie. Your reaction, Victoria, to the appearance of the Princess of Wales on Children in Need last night?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see, like, the massive fuss about this. You know, this is, like, the younger new royal family, which, you know, there's obviously a lot of changes to how it was run with Queen Elizabeth. And I don't really see, like, such a big deal about this. I don't think she's done anything wrong. I think she obviously wants to help children. She wants to use her platform to help as many people as she can. And I don't really understand why this should be such a negative.
I don't know about this, Lisa. I just wonder whether somebody that rich and that famous should be telling hard-up Brits to dig into their pockets and hand out cash.
I think there's always a problem when very, very wealthy people start to ask for money on behalf of somebody else. You know, it sort of silences the poorest people, and it also, you know, they're sort of washing their own image. So I think there's always been a hypocrisy about this. I remember a few years ago when we were in the pandemic and we had a sort of NHS day or whatever it was. And, you know, there were people all over the sort of celebrities coming from their posh homes with swimming pools behind them, sort of talking about how hard lockdown was. And I remember there was a big fallout about that as well. So I think hypocrisy is something that is in public life. I think people are now perhaps got little tolerance for it, actually. I think that people's tolerance for hypocrisy is becoming less.
Yes, Ben Afwedu, I like Kate Middleton, but I don't think she should be impersonating Bob Geldof and telling viewers, give us your bloody money.
I think she looked great. That was the main thing, you know. Good. But my opinion on her, yeah, no, I think we live in a time where you really got to watch every step. We're in this kind of wokish kind of generation and people are picking up on absolutely everything. And we are in tough times, and maybe if times were a little bit better, it wouldn't have been so bad. But I think because of the way the world is now, I think that it was a bad idea to kind of, although she's probably the best looking person to open it, but I think it was a bad idea to kind of use her and, you know, and in that kind of way. But you are right that there is always history. There's something that happened with Oprah and The Rock in America, and it was the same sort of thing.
In Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, you'd better off getting just a normal everyday TV presenter.
OK, I mean, Maria, if you've got a bit more of that footage, we'll talk over it of Kate at the BBC, because lots of people are angry. They feel lectured by the royals, lectured last night at Children in Need, lectured by King Charles on the issue of refugees, and lectured by the Prince of Wales, William, on net zero. And that's going to be a problem for the royals, Victoria.
I think the royal family needs to always stay out of anything, obviously, political. Like, you know, it's been run kind of quite differently to Queen Elizabeth. She sort of stuck to what she was supposed to do, didn't get involved in anything else. And I think King Charles needs to lead by example and sort of stick to that and stay out of politics and leave that to the politicians.
Yeah, I just think, Ben Afwedu, that the royals are like Victorian children. They should be seen but not heard. I didn't know what Kate Middleton sounded like until last night.
I didn't actually know that. And
really?
Yeah,
no, we've seen her talk before.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that she spoke like that. And she speaks very, very nicely. Do you think that it had more of an effect? I mean, this is going to sound really weird. If it was, well, if the Queen was doing something like that, no one would have said anything about it. And I'm not sure if they would have said it if William was doing it. I think it was I think there's a slightly sexist element to it as well.
I mean, I remember, Mark, being on this show a year ago, and we were talking about what might change with King Charles. And one of the things we were talking about is, will his activism start getting in the way of his public duty? Right. And I think it absolutely is, and it is going to continue.
There you go. Well, look, fascinating stuff. What do you think about Kate Middleton's appearance on Children in Need last night? Mark at GBnews.com. Coming up, shock new developments on that phone call between Prince Harry and his father, King Charles. We'll get the inside story from the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, plus tomorrow's papers, which are full of one man and one man only, Nigel Farage. Find out why at 10:30. But we're going to talk about the royals next. Don't go anywhere.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think.
I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Not everyone agrees with my take at 10. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of diverse opinion. And Steve says, Mark, disgusting comments about our future Queen. Long live the royal family. This is because Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, appeared at the very beginning of the BBC's Children in Need. Obviously, it's a fundraiser. Many felt that she's not the right person to tell people to dig into their pockets. How about this? Audrey says, Mark, there is no Kate Middleton. How rude and unnecessary to refer to this married lady by a lazy slang name. I know what you mean, but in the world of showbiz, Audrey, we all know who I'm talking about when I say Kate Middleton, but I take your point. OK, folks, look, lots more to come, but it's time now for US News with the Queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. And Kinsey, let's talk about the big royal story of the week. Prince Harry and Charles speak to each other on the phone.
Oh, we're not going to get into this story until I slap you on the hand for the way you talked about our beautiful Princess of Wales, Mark. You know, I am personally insulted. She is just absolutely precious. I agree with you, though. I wonder, management-wise, who gave the thumbs up on that. But her heart was in the right place, and she's just trying to make a name for herself in a space that is very important to her, and that's children's early years.
Indeed. Well, listen, I take your point. Lots of viewers agree with what you have said. Let's talk now about Harry and Charles. Is a peace deal in the offing?
I mean, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex desperately wish it was. It's Page 6 that's reporting that Harry and Meghan had a turning point conversation with King Charles after that alleged birthday snub. And the fact that Meghan jumped on the phone, too, I think is a big deal. Sources close to the Sussexes told multiple media outlets that the conversation was warm and marked a notable shift in tone. In response, Mark, a palace insider told Page 6 that H&M were total hypocrites for not keeping this phone call private. Quote, Harry and Meghan fight for privacy when it suits them, and yet the minute Harry gets on the phone to the king, it's in a newspaper. One courtier, which I think is interesting, has even suggested that the call never took place, citing the king's packed birthday schedule, his lack of a cell phone, and asking where privacy paranoid Harry and Meghan would send a video of Archie and Lily singing happy birthday to the king when he doesn't have, a personal iPhone.
Well, that's a story, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I like the idea of Harry and Charles speaking again, but I find the idea that he would take Meghan Markle's calls, I take that with a pinch of salt. I'm not sure that I'm convinced he would speak to his daughter-in-law, would he?
Okay, here, let me tell you what happened. Can I tell you what actually happened? Well, I mean, not in this particular case, but Harry and Meghan, as what we're hearing over on this side, is that Harry and Meghan are struggling to prove their value without association to the royal family. Look at Meghan's Archetypes podcast, where she did try to distance herself from the royal family. It was Meghan talking to Paris Hilton and Mariah and all of these American celebrities. That did not do well analytically. That's why they lost their Spotify deal. What did blow up, even though it was a year ago, was their Netflix series where all they did was trash the royal family. So to buyers, to people like to people like Amazon who might be looking at them for a podcast series for Netflix, they're looking at them going, really, where is their connection to the royal family. Harry and Meghan need to get back in the good graces of the royal family. This Omid Scobie book is not doing them any favors. And then when they leaked that they had not had an invitation to the King's birthday, they tried to save themselves by telling BBC there was going to be a phone call. This is all a desperate attempt. Harry and Meghan trying to get back in with the royal family because they realize that that's where their value is.
Well, speaking of value, a career development for Meghan Markle. What's happening?
Mark, nice transition. That's why you're number one at this game. This is Christopher Anderson, who was the author of The Day Diana Died. He's also the author of The King. He is suggesting that Meghan Markle should become a talk show host. He's throwing her hat in the ring for that. Now, while some Hollywood insiders saw her at this variety party over the last week and said she's going to go behind the scenes, she's going to be a producer, Christopher Anderson actually thinks she should go in front of the camera and be a talk show host like Oprah. But like I just said to you, she had that gig at Spotify, basically talking to Paris, talking to Mariah, talking to Serena Williams. The interest was just not there. I don't think that this is an outlet that she would excel at. God bless Christopher Anderson, but I'm going to have to disagree with him on this one.
Now, I understand Prince Harry is licking his wounds in relation to an award snub.
How is no one talking about this? This story cracks me up. This is coming from Crazy Days and Nights. It's an industry blog here in the United States. And they said that Prince Harry was told that he was going to get a Grammy nomination for the narration of his book, Spare, which is basically just the Todger Chronicles. And here's what it's actually interesting to me, because even the Associated Press, which is a very respected, this is just a no opinion, down the line media outlet, they reported, perhaps most shocking of all, is the omission of Prince Harry, whose memoir Spare sold more than 3.2 million copies worldwide in just 1 week. The British royal narrated the audiobook, but did not receive a nomination. So, the industry, according to the Associated Press, also extremely surprised that Prince Harry didn't receive a nomination. Clearly, Mark, the PR team for Harry and Meghan spend most of their time getting the trophies for Meghan.
There you go. Speaking of trophies, what about Donald Trump? How is his path to the White House looking?
I mean, strangely, Mark, he's a shoo-in. I mean, it would be crazy to me if he doesn't become our next president. Polling-wise, he's absolutely dominating. Obviously, we are seeing a lot of people just fired up and frustrated with the state of our economy, with the state of, our culture in general. I watch your show, and I feel so much. I feel like we have so much in common with the idea that people just going crazy. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm sure you've seen this trend of people on TikTok, the Gen Z on TikTok talking about how wise Osama bin Laden is. We're going crazy, right? But also they're talking about how difficult it is to function in the United States right now with rent, groceries, and they're saying that those videos that are trending by influencers are really going to hinder Joe Biden's run for the White House. So we might see Trump pull this one out because people just want somebody that's business and money minded who can get the economy back on the right track.
There you go. Donald Trump, a shoo-in for the White House. You heard it here first. Briefly, if you can, Kinsey, Elon Musk in a bit of financial trouble.
Yeah, now let me read because the list is getting longer and longer, so I had to actually pull a list. These are the advertisers that have pulled out of X because they feel like Elon is not managing it correctly, because they feel like there's a lot of hate speech, anti-Semitism, and basically fake news spreading right now, and they're concerned about it. Paramount, Warner Brothers, these are huge movie studios here in the States. Discovery and Disney. Apple, which is, I think, one of the latest ones that shocked him, Lionsgate, IBM. These are all advertisers that say that they are currently pausing their advertising with Elon. Elon, of course, fighting back, saying that they're trying to control free speech. But, you know, he should clean it up, Mark. I'm going to be honest. I haven't tweeted in a long time. I don't think it's a happy place anymore.
I tend to agree with you. Well, it's always a happy place when you join us, Kinsey. We'll see you in a week's time. My thanks to the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Do check out her excellent podcast, To Die For Daily, and her website of the same name. Next up, we got the papers with full pundit reaction. Don't go anywhere. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yeah. And you like horses and that.
Yeah. So I've jumped out of planes.
Have you? Do you like?
My goodness. The joy of live telly, folks. Look at that. You see me deep in observation of tomorrow's papers. And let us start with this. And the old talkback has shut down. New batteries, please, folks. The Sun on Sunday. Sick tweets about plane crash. Jungle Grace in jibes at Farage. I'm a Celebrity's Grace Dent made sick jokes about co-star Nigel Farage's near-fatal plane crash. As the pair face off in tonight's show, a source close to the politician called her tweets crass. OK, let's have a look now at the Sunday Express. Terror. A manhunt was underway tonight after 6 suspected terrorists landed in Britain, having crossed the Channel in a small boat. Sunday Telegraph. PM deploys Whitehall officials to Rwanda as revolt grows. Families near new pylons to get £1,000 off bills. And Mayor Khan in London misled the public over ULEZ benefits. Also, remote civil servants can work from the beach. Civil servants have been given the green light to work remotely overseas, prompting concerns that some will choose to log in from the beach. Also, there's Nigel on the front page of the Telegraph. No stick in the mud. Nigel Farage has already faced his first challenge. I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. But it remains to be seen whether he came out of the sticky situation unscathed. The former UKIP leader has entered the jungle along with 9 other famous faces for the 23rd series of the ITV show, which airs tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We will bring full post-match reaction at 10:30. Sunday Mirror, Farage X, I want him buried in a snake pit. Harsh words. Also, taxpayer cash squandered. Staggering £100 billion of Tory waste. The Tories blew £100 billion in 4 years, says a report. The waste, most whilst Rishi Sunak was PM or Chancellor, was branded disgraceful by campaigners, revealing it ahead of the government's autumn statement. Well, I got no doubt that that so-called waste was in relation to our, in my view, mad COVID overreaction. Sunday Times now. Rugby's reckoning 300 former players to go to court over brain injuries. Also, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, weighs up surprise cut in tax for millions. Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are mulling over last-minute cuts to income tax on national insurance to boost economic growth and the Tory party's electoral fortunes. And also, thousands of migrants may get an amnesty. Home Office ministers are considering granting an effective amnesty to migrants who arrived in Britain illegally and have been left in limbo, facing the prospect of deportation to Rwanda. It could be tens of thousands. The Independent now. Dumped in A&E and left untreated for 5 days or more. Revealed pitiful and shameful plight of some of our most vulnerable patients, as doctors warn of the dire state of specialist emergency care for the mentally ill. Daily Star Sunday. Farage in the brown stuff and raise a glass to the beer belly busting berries. No exercise needed to lose 3 stone. It sounds too good to be true, but boffins insist that scoffing a humble berry will help you burn enough fat to lose 3 stone without sweating it out in the gym. Is this the end of the beer belly? Surely not. And those are your front pages. Well, let's get reaction now from my brilliant pundits. Socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey, singer and TV personality Ben Afwedu, and ethnographer and academic Lisa Mackenzie. Well, look, let's get to a few of these stories if we can. And I think this is really a story that's going to dominate for the weeks and months ahead. And this is the illegal migrant crossings. Thousands of migrants may get an amnesty, say the Sunday Times. And PM deploys Whitehall officials to Rwanda as revolt grows. Rishi Sunak will station Home Office officials in Rwanda as he tries to fight off an escalating Tory rebellion over his small boats policy. It's a massive political headache for the Prime Minister, isn't it, Lisa?
It is, but, I mean, this is a political headache for many prime ministers and presidents throughout the world, actually,
Sure.
this sort of massive movement of people. And I think rather than keep focusing on these sort of gimmicks like Rwanda, we've got to realise that we've got to sort the system out. So, you know, one of the things I think we've got to start to have this conversation is who is a refugee? What does that mean? Because at the moment, it's very loose and very broad, which basically means that legally, you know, they can be here. So I think the conversation about what a refugee is and who a refugee is. I think that's got to come at some point, and it will be uncomfortable, but I think we've got to have it.
Indeed. We know the Tories are struggling to get their Rwanda policy off the ground, Victoria. However, I wonder whether it will help Rishi Sunak at the next election that at least he's the leader who is seen to want to do something about the small boats. We hear very little from Keir Starmer.
It is very true. I think he's actually like showing himself up as he's actually like really being serious about it this time, and he means business. You know, like the way he's like, right, we're doing this. I just don't. You know, I think there needs to be something going on where the people can't even get into the country. I don't, you know, this Rwanda thing is like a gimmick. I do think it is a bit ridiculous at that. We've got to that point.
So you want to tackle this problem at source?
I think it needs to be tackled like front on. Why is France allowing this to happen? You know, why are they even getting to our shores? So then we have to deal with it into this whole other issue.
Yes, I just wonder whether the media and political elite, Ben, underestimate how angry my viewers and listeners, the public, are about the illegal crossings.
Said we're going to stop.
It's going to be a real problem. I really do think that. I think the people are really sort of. I mean, you know, we're marching and rioting about so many different things, and that's just going to be another one of them. I think we need to take a slightly, I never thought I'd say this, Trump attitude to the...
Right.
To it,
stricter borders.
basically.
OK, the equivalent of a wall, essentially.
What would Donald Trump do?
Yeah.
Right, what would Donald Trump do? What would Donald Trump do?
Build a wall. Although it did, it worked. He actually built this incredible wall, but then part of it wasn't finished, and then it was...
But it didn't.
But Joe Biden's been rebuilding that wall. The Democrats have released funding to construct
Joe Biden realised that actually it was a really good
The thing is, the world has got to realise that this is a problem now. People moving...
Well, we need to have these giant
because of
nets.
war, because of whatever reasons.
Look, we'll be there.
People are moving, so we have got to have a sensible conversation about the movement of people. We have
sensible and serious.
Now, listen, you joke about
No, I mean, I'm not actually joking about
human beings,
it.
aren't we?
No, I'm not joking about it. It is human beings, but at the end of the day, we can't just let everybody in. Like, what are we going to do?
Of course, the other elephant in the room, which is interesting...
People are too scared to be honest about it.
The other elephant in the room,
have to be honest,
Lisa, which I think some of your colleagues on the left are unwilling to address, which is not just the illegal crossings, which are a concern for many voters, but legal net migration as well. 700,000 a year. Why aren't the left more concerned about that? Because if you have that many people coming to the country every year, that's more pressure on resources, pressure on the cost of labour, big implications for ordinary people.
I mean, I'm not on the left. I'm an anarchist.
She's pure anarchy.
We're all on another planet.
Yeah.
So I'm not sort of. I know why the left don't want to talk about this is because it's difficult. And I think particularly sort of the liberal, bourgeois left, they definitely don't want to talk about this because they don't have to face this sort of stuff in their communities. I've been writing for years about what happens when poor people come into a community where there are already lots of poor people and the pressure that puts on. I have been called... sort of a colonialist and a racist many times just for stating the fact that what happens in poor communities when more poor people come in because it's not the wealthy that is sharing the resources.
No, and
it's
right
the
now
poor.
in England, people that are less fortunate are actually then losing their homes to people that are being brought into this country.
Most definitely. Should we talk briefly, if we can, about the economy and tax cuts? And Ben, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, weighs up a surprise cut in tax for millions. Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are mulling over last-minute cuts to income tax or national insurance to boost economic growth. Can Britain afford tax cuts?
Yeah, I think they can. I think, though, I mean, something really needs to be done anyway. It's just the cost of living is ridiculous now.
Yeah.
And with all that's going on, and everyone is literally struggling. And it just seems like, I don't know, we were just talking out in the green room, and it's just like this country has really changed. And then there was a conversation, well, has it always been like this? And it's like, well, no, it actually hasn't. I think we are really in in hot water.
We're in a very dark place.
Yes.
I mean, what people want is more money in their pockets.
Yeah.
And if there's talk of tax cuts, I'm not so sure about inheritance tax. I think a cut on the basic rate of income tax would be the way to go, Lisa.
I think VAT as well, actually. I think a cut in VAT would really help people because that goes on everything and that would immediately take something off of everything.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a look at the tax system because people need to be able to... If you're working, you need to be able to live a life with dignity, and that is not happening.
Well, listen, let's talk about a life in dignity. Nigel Farage goes into the jungle tomorrow.
This. I think
but I'm very excited to say that exclusive images have emerged of Nigel in Australia. He's not quite in the jungle. His first challenge, there he is with two of his co-stars, and they had to do a challenge before going into the jungle. And in fact, I understand that they're quite far away from the jungle location. But there you go. That is, it's not a bush tucker trial, but Nigel's got his head inside a camper van, fishing out some kind of treasure. And there he is with his co-star, who I believe is a YouTube phenomenon. And what's her name, Faye? Nella Rose. I'm not down with the youngsters, but there you go. I'm sure a very, very talented lady. So they're waist deep in slime. Doesn't look like fun, Victoria, does it?
Yeah, I think you've just got to sort of like blank out really what it is and just get on with it. I think Nigel's going to do really well, actually. And he's going to get a massive, much bigger audience of people that wouldn't have actually watched him.
And why do you think, why are you so confident he'll do well?
Just knowing his personality, I think he gets on with pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
He's very approachable.
And he's a scrapper and a fighter.
And, yeah, he just gets on with it, and I think he's going to do really well.
You must have been offered the jungle many times.
I was in talks with them a couple of years ago, and then I don't know why I didn't do it, but it's something I could be up for.
So you wouldn't never say never?
I don't like the creepy crawly thing, but I think that's just a complete mental thing. I could get over that.
Yeah.
But the daring stuff...
Well, listen, how do you think Nigel's going to get on in the jungle?
I think he's going to win.
You think he's going to win?
Yeah.
I think he's going to win.
Finalist. He'll be a finalist.
Why do you say that?
I've met him. I met him many years ago, actually, and funnily enough, I met him when he was really getting a bad rap from the public, and I found him quite charming and just really kind of nice, and I could feel that he was a nice guy. And I think he's a leader. And I think that he will be the daddy of the camp and the kind of leader, and I think that he will take everyone's sort of problems into consideration, everyone's complaints into consideration.
Well, Lisa, could he be stitched up by TV editors and producers with an agenda?
I mean, he could. But I think what might stitch him up is like the public vote, because I think he's going to get every rotten thing he's going to be eating all sorts of stuff.
But that's a good thing, because then you get more airtime.
I do think
boring,
that's true. You want to do the bush tucker trials.
I think he'd be good at it, though. That's the thing.
mean, having met him here, I think he's going to do really well because one-on-one, he's very personable. And so actually, and what we might all be watching. Well, I won't be watching, but people will be watching. But the real test is how he gets on with everybody in the camp.
Yes, well, I think, as you say, knowing Nigel, he'll get on brilliantly. We will bring you post-match analysis every single night. That'll be 10 o'clock normally. It's 10:30 tomorrow because the first show is feature-length. I believe it's 9 to 10:30. So 10:30 here tomorrow night, we will bring you full reaction. I'm excited to say that we will have a top political insider that knows Nigel well in the studio, carefully watching the programme and analysing his every move, and that's Patrick O'Flynn. But coming up, more from tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and my pundits will be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros. And we've been asking you, in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll, when he enters the jungle tomorrow, will Britain fall in love with Nigel Farage? The results are in. I shall reveal all next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Can Britain afford tax cuts? Richard says, Mark, an inheritance tax cut would be a boost to millions of hard-working people that simply own their own home and cost very little. It's also totally immoral to tax someone simply because they die. Alex said, I think the government can afford to cut taxes, as this will give more money to us to spend, which will not only boost the economy, but bring in more revenue to the Chancellor to spend it where it's needed most. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, says Alec. Alison, on regards to, I don't know if you saw that story, quite astonishing. Civil servants told that they can work from the beach. What do you mean work from abroad, says Alison. The latest is 3 days in the office minimum and productivity. That is nonsense. Well, keep those emails coming, mark@gbnews.com. Now, we've conducted an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll. We've been asking, when he enters the jungle tomorrow, will Britain fall in love with Nigel Farage? The results are in, and so let's have a look at how they have played out. Well, let me tell you that 48.9% say that they will fall in love with Nigel, but 51.1% say no, it will not happen. There you go. There you go. Now we've got the Mail newspaper, the Mail on Sunday. Special investigation. After 5 years, Britain sends plane mutiny rapist back to Somalia with a plush hotel, armed guards and therapy that you paid for. He's the vile gang rapist whose deportation was infamously thwarted at the last minute by a mutiny of virtue signalling airline passengers on the same flight. Now the Mail on Sunday can reveal how it's taken another 5 years to finally send this guy back to Somalia, with ministers forced to offer an extraordinary package of concessions to break his relentless cycle of dubious human rights appeals. There you go. I think that qualifies for another The World's Gone Mad award. Reacting to the big stories of the day, Lady Victoria Harvey, Ben Afwedu and Lisa Mackenzie. And it's time for my pundits to nominate their headline heroes and back page zeros. So, Victoria, who's your headline hero of the day?
My headline hero of the day, my goodness. Gosh.
There's got to be a few, isn't it?
There is, You know, I had my worst people, the people that I hate, are the Just Stop Oil people.
Right, but I know you love Nigel. I think he's caught your eye, hasn't he?
Nigel actually was on my list because we were just talking about him before, but I do think he is going to do amazingly well.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of guts for anybody to go into that jungle and do that show. I think it's probably like the most daunting show. Besides, like, I never did the Big Brother show. That one I always thought was quite scary, you know, because you're so, like, exposed.
Well, definitely. We were all agreed that Nigel will most likely do very well in the jungle.
Was the person.
What about his political future? I mean, could he be Britain's Donald Trump?
I think he could. Look, I think him going on this show is going to sway a lot of people politically because he is going... It's actually, I'm thinking, wow, ITV have kind of been quite brave, actually, putting him on there because...
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very good for us having him on there.
There you go. Well, look, watch this space. Ben, your headline hero.
Esther McVeigh. Esther McVeigh, because she comes from here, GBNews, the best news station in the country. And also, it's a bit like she was called back to duty. And she went. And I like that. It's like being called up and, yes, all right, I'll go straight back in and I'll do that.
And Minister for Common Sense, we need a bit of that, don't we?
Yes, I'm all for the Minister for Common Sense. I think we need common sense because common sense has left us.
Yeah, she'll be busier than all the other ministers combined, won't she, Lisa?
She probably will, but do you want my hero?
Who's your headline hero?
I've gone for this real curveball. It's the president of Malawi.
Okay.
And the reason why is because Malawi is in a deep recession. They are going to have to put out really severe austerity measures.
Yeah.
But the first thing the president has done is told the government and all the MPs that it's their jobs and their pay that's going to get cut first. And none of them are allowed to travel abroad and have all these perks. So he's kind of leading from the front. You know, there's going to be austerity, it's going to be tough, but we're going to take some of it as well. That's a politician.
I love that. That's what leadership looks like. Well, Victoria, who's your back page zero?
Oh, I sort of said it before. Just Stop Oil.
Yeah.
The ones that have just been arrested.
Yeah, and they've been caught up with pro-Palestinian protesters. They're taking it in turns to annoy the country, aren't they?
They are, and, you know, I'm actually, like, I feel so strongly about this, as well as the border crisis that we're having right now. But, you know, I actually really want to be in a situation where I'm actually confronted by one of these people and just to see what I would do.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I'm really... No, I think I probably would get arrested.
Why do you object to the Just Stop Oil protesters so much?
Because they don't know what they're talking about. Because climate change is bullshit.
You think? I mean, listen, surely that many...
No. The climate changes, just as the world changes. We are on a natural cycle between cold and hot. But this whole thing that the humans are destroying the planet, yes, we're destroying it with plastic bottles and that type of thing, but the car emissions, this is just a way to tax us.
The vast majority of climate scientists argue that the planet is heating up and it's because of fossil fuels and because of the enormous amounts of carbon that we chuck into the atmosphere. How can that many scientists be wrong, Victoria Harvey?
Because they are paid to lie, just like what happened during COVID.
OK, well, look, it's all about opinions. Many would disagree, and that's certainly not the government's position, but you're entitled to your view. Briefly, Ben, your back page zero.
Suella Braverman.
Okay.
I just think the statements are just a bit out of control, and I think that the one about, you know, homeless people choosing to live in tents was just a really sort of silly, unthought-out statement. And
so you won't be missing her?
I think she got set up a little bit, like, I think the way they twisted it.
OK, Lisa, briefly, if you can, back page zero.
Camden Council, for the same reason that Ben's just said, who have gone around and sort of destroyed homeless people's tents. That is all they have got, clearly. They live in a tent, and Camden Council thinks it's a good thing to destroy them.
OK, well, look, thank you to my pundits. Thank you to you for your company. Loved having all your emails. I'm back tomorrow at 10. Headliners is next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to Sunday, for most of us we will see further rain. There'll be a few brighter moments and for all it will be fairly mild. Reason for the unsettled weather is this huge area low pressure which is not going to go far as we go through the second half of the weekend. Note the tightly packed isobars down towards the south indicating it's going to be pretty blustery. So as we end Saturday going into the early hours of Sunday, relatively clear skies across England and Wales initially. Further north we have further areas of rain and they will sink their way southeastwards as we go through the course of the night. It's a mild one for all of us, temperatures staying firmly in the positive territory, and as I mentioned, it's going to be pretty blustery down towards the southwest, risk of some gales here as we go through Sunday. Sunday really is a mixture of showers or longer spells of rain. Some of the rain could potentially be fairly heavy at times. Best of any brightness probably up across eastern Scotland. Southwestern England may well cheer up too as we go into the afternoon, but for most it is a mild one. Temperatures may be a shade cooler than they have been today. On to Monday, further rain is in the forecast for much of the UK. Maybe something a little bit drier and brighter coming through for parts of eastern England, and here actually winds may well be a little bit lighter. Further west, it's going to be another blustery day. Good news is Tuesday and Wednesday it does turn a little bit dry for some of us, but feeling a little bit colder.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese.